Okay, so this is part 2 of the video on answering the 150 word question in the AQA French higher tier GCSE writing paper. And if you haven't watched part 1, I do urge you to go back and find part 1 first, as this will make much more sense if you've just watched part 1. So our question that we're answering is on the left there. We've got to talk about the importance of holidays and a memorable holiday in the past, or memorable holidays. And I just thought before we start it would be worth looking at this part of the mark scheme. We looked at where the marks come from, but in the appendix at the back of the mark scheme, it tells us the sorts of things that the exam board are looking for when they talk about having a variety of vocabulary, a variety of structure, and those complex sentences as well. So with the variety of vocabulary, it's looking really for synonyms, not repeating j'aime all the time, or super, but using different words like chouette, génial, passionnant, je préfère, j'apprécie. So trying to avoid using the same structures over and over again doesn't necessarily have to be, but can be more sophisticated vocabulary as well. So looking for opportunities to replace repetition should be something that we spend a couple of moments on. And then in terms of variety of structure, we've got some ideas, but this really isn't a checklist. It does say, for example, and anything that's going to attract the examiner's positive attention is anything that's difficult to use in French or is different from the way the English does it. So things like different tenses are always going to be positive, and that's mentioned down here. Anything to do with making sentences longer using conjunctions, and there's a few examples there. Even using parce que makes the sentence longer. But then you can read these for yourself, and you may not understand what all of them mean. You might not know all of them. I would suggest that using possessive pronouns is quite tricky, really. Not tricky to use them, but tricky to find an opportunity to use them. They don't come up loads. Much better would be to sort of work on a list of different structures that can be used in different contexts, and try and learn those, and look out for my videos on higher level structures, and hopefully you'll pick up a few that are easy to use whatever the topic. So let's get into writing this thing then. So remember, I'd planned what I was going to include, and I'd said the big important thing there to remember was some OJs. So I'm going to put this over there, and let's start with the first one. So let's just go straight in and use the wording from the wording from the question. So holidays are important. Now, this is the first point to make, is the fact that we've got the S on vacances. You can't take it off. Les vacances is plural, always got to be plural. So we've got to say holidays are important, and make that agree it's feminine. Because you can have a rest, a break. So when you're translating you, remember that we want to say one in French, because we don't mean on. We don't mean just the person you're speaking to. We mean people in general. So on peut avoir un repos. And now I've used because. So as soon as I use because, I'm already thinking, well, that's a justification, that's a reason. But holidays are important is not an opinion. But if I put je pense que in here, that is a very clever way of turning fact into an opinion, and therefore getting my OJ in really early on. And then something like there is a lot of stress in daily life, and now here's a good technique to expand on context, on content. Certains, can't spell when I'm talking. Certains disent que, some people say that. When I've given my opinion, I can always sort of contrast that with somebody else who thinks something different. So some people say that holidays are a waste of time, but I think that, and I'm going to use this en again, you should, that's a useful modal verb, you should go on holiday because, and I'm putting in another because after my je pense que, so I'm giving myself my second OJ early on. You can make lot, or I could say more, because I've said a lot already, more, plus de progrès au collège, at school, if you are not stressed. So I've used a negative there as well, which is good, and I've made the sentence even longer with the if. So I keep using this en. En is really useful to know how to use, because then you can talk in general about you. So furthermore, or on top of that, en plus, je pense que les vacances sont importantes. Now here's an alternative to parce que. You can use pour with an infinitive, which is another higher level structure. Any infinitive structure there is going to be good in order to improve higher level vocab family relationships. Les relations familiales. So I'm talking about the fact that it's important to spend time with family. So on top of that, I think that holidays are important in order to improve family relations. And straight off here, I'm very aware of my repetition and the fact that I keep doing what I say you shouldn't do. So I've used je pense que at least 3 times there. So it's important to know some synonyms. So I would say that holidays are important because you can have a rest. There's lots of stress in everyday life. Some people say that holidays are a waste of time, but I think that there's another je pense que. Well, I could leave that one. Because I think that you should go on holiday because, now I could replace that because with car and have a different one there, because you can make more progress at school if you are not stressed. Furthermore, I think that, so here I need another synonym for je pense que. I believe that, je crois que, holidays are important. I've said that already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change important to essential. Indispensable. I'm going to change that to essential. I believe that holidays are essential in order to improve family relationships. Okay, so I'm going to go back to that now. Going to go back to that and read that through. I would say that holidays are important because you can have a rest. Well, I'd use you can later on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the little structure avoir besoin de, which I think everybody ought to learn. So j'ai besoin de is I have need of. Avoir besoin de, to have need of, is the way French have to say to need. They don't have a simple verb to need. They have to use I have need of. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to say because everyone needs to have a rest, or needs a rest. In fact, I don't need to have, instead of the you can have a rest. Now, everyone is tout le monde, the whole world, literally, tout le monde, and it's singular, the whole world. So it needs the he, she form of the verb, which he or she has is il or elle, a. So everybody has is tout le monde a. And then I can put my besoin de there for everybody has need of. So I'm changing the j'ai to il or elle a and replacing il or elle with tout le monde, everybody. So everybody needs. And I'm going to drop that in there, get rid of my en and replace my e of parce que. Tout le monde a besoin, and I don't need the avoir now. I've got the two vowels together, so apostrophe, because everybody has need of a rest. I like that a lot. So I would say that holidays are important because everybody has need of a rest, or everybody needs a rest. There's a lot of stress in everyday life. Some people, and I could put for example at school, so that, in fact I might do that, because then we can remind ourselves of the spelling of par exemple, because it's a really useful one to have up your sleeve, but people spell it as in English. Some people say that holidays are a waste of time, but I think that one should, or you should, go on holiday because you can make more progress at school if you are not stressed. On top of that, I believe that holidays are indispensable or essential in order to improve family relationships. And I could go on if I want to, but I'm not going to. I'm going to move on to my memorable holidays. So I'm going to say, in fact, that's a nice fluent way to start. I have just, and the examiners like this phrase, je viens de, with an infinitive, means I have just retourné. So infinitive, easy to use, but the temptation is to translate the I have just literally. In fact, I have just returned from Italy, and I've got to say the Italy, and I'm going to put a time phrase in there because when I'm changing tense, I always want to put a time phrase in case my tense goes wrong. Now, I haven't used a past tense there. I've used je viens de to show the past, but as it's higher level stuff, it could still go wrong. So putting last week in there just makes that a bit clearer. Where, nice conjunction to link up where I went on holiday, où je suis allé en vacances avec ma famille. So I'm just making that clear now that I'm talking about holiday, by using the word holiday. I've made it clear that it's in the past with la semaine dernière, and I've used that je viens de structure as well as a conjunction. So I'm going to continue this in part 3 of the series of videos. So do come back and watch me finish this paragraph off.